I mean, if someone is demonstrating their ability to work as a group or work as a team and be less focused on their own individual gain, all of that's wrapped together. So how can someone be, excelling in one and not excelling in the other? And if they're excelling in both, then why would we have two categories that say the same thing? It's that kind of stuff that's just in the literature.
The first one, the team thing, is, if you see somebody struggling, you reach out and help them without being asked. The second one is whether you're treating people with respect, the way that you're talking to that person. You can talk nicely to your coworker and that person could be struggling to lift something or carry something and not help them out. So it's all different things.
Well, I understand. I know respect is a huge spectrum of the person's disrespecting me. Well, let's talk a little bit more about it, because respect can be split up into 100 different ways, like for a couple of things you just mentioned. But as someone brought up to me too on our team, respectful of others' obligations, time commitments, and responsibilities. So if you're going to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-point grading system,
we don't know how we're grading.
well, as was presented to me, there's 5 points. You're either above, below, in the middle.
Because the goals are in there.
Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is, if someone is disrespectful to someone else, or if they completely blow off a meeting, under this category, they're not respectful of their time commitments or their obligations, does that constitute someone being below average?
We haven't done the grading.
So this thing is still being developed. Like I said earlier, I thought you said it was already done. I'm just curious.
That's the form. We have not taken the form and translated it to money.
Well, I get that part.
Yeah.
But what you have developed is whether someone's meeting expectations, whether they're below, whether they're above, whether they're extremely below or extremely above, significantly below and significantly
above. And I think there's like an overall. Is there an overall at the end?
No, there's no overall. But my question is, if someone's late one time or if they're late 45 times, if they're late one time and the impact that it has is devastating, what warrants significantly below and what warrants, how do you quantify it? Because some of the stuff, the way it's I just...
John, I get the feeling you're filibustering this particular point, because last time you talked about not being ready to talk about performance measurement tools and the like, and you're not ready today. That's pretty clear. But I know for a fact.
Actually, I am ready.
I know for a fact that the Teamsters have contracts in the public and private sector that contain performance-paid standards. So what I would suggest would be, we're just covering what our revised proposal is for you, and how we see it folding out, and that the real discussion would take place next year. It gives you plenty of time to go through the other Teamsters contracts that recognize performance-based pay, talk to whoever negotiated those, talk to the legal counsel that drafted the language, and be ready to discuss it next June.
I'm less concerned with that, Jim. I'm more concerned with the response that I got that this thing is already done. So I can talk to whomever I want to talk to. I could find those contracts in other places that you say exist that have performance standards that really has little or no impact on what this group wants. And the only thing I'm asking is that if this thing is still being developed and still being worked out and that there's still room for improvement, I feel a heck of a lot better agreeing to a concept that not this year, but next year, all money is going to be tied to this thing. We don't know how much, about what percentage, but all money given to employees will be tied to this thing, when this thing is a complete mess from my standpoint.
Well, you could start right now and start playing the role and reviewing it and notating and sending your notes to Barbara. There's nothing that stops you from doing that.
I don't have the desire or time to send notes to someone who says, well, that's interesting, I appreciate your opinion, but however, this form's already been developed.
It is because we have employees that we evaluate right now. And we don't have to talk, we actually don't have to talk to you about that because there's no money tied to it.
But let me explain where we're at. We developed it, we trained everybody on how to use it. Starting October, we will start to use it, okay? Once we start to use it, we might see, we don't like this or we don't like this. And at that point, it's something that could be revised. But that's where we are right now. Does that make any sense?
It makes complete sense of what you're doing, and it makes absolutely completely no sense for me to want to agree to something that's, it could change tomorrow. So it's all right. I'll tell you what, I would feel a heck of a lot more comfortable agreeing to language that just says that the employer and the union will return to bargaining in year 2, and if you want to state your position in advance that raises in year 2, you know, that the county's position is that they will be tied to merit, that's fine. If that's what you want to state your position as, but as far as the county's ability, I mean the union's ability to bargain with the county, as to how much weight will be given to this thing is to be negotiated. But I'm comfortable with it. I'm not going to be.
That's not our proposal. That may be your proposal.
Well, I need to see your proposal because you read it to me, but I'd like to see something around it.
Okay.
Do you have copies you can pass out?
I'm sure I could get a copy made here somewhere.
Right. Well, what else do you want to discuss on the chart?
Well, I picked the first one. I'm going to take the second one.
Okay. 42. Employee performance evaluation. All right, lunch breaks and Article 43, lunch breaks, work schedule overtime. I have prepared a proposal that mirrors the, I think it was reduced to writing. I mean, we were going back and forth a couple, not last session, but the session before, and I mixed in some of the stuff that was talked about and agreed to. The big difference in this proposal is that the transit drivers are not being excluded from the 30-minute break. The language about the field work groups, with the exception of public transportation employees, shall be granted 2 50-minute breaks, is in there, meaning that if the typical transit driver does accumulate enough time during the course of the day to be constituted as breaks, that's okay, but they deserve a lunch.
But we don't have a lunch.
That's what I
The
know.
only drivers that, the paratransit drivers have an hour or a half hour lunch.
That's what our proposal is. So, if we look at it and read it, then we can have some further discussion on it. Employees shall be granted 1 unpaid lunch break, and again, before this, your language was employees with the exception of public transportation employees. So I removed that. So this would apply to public transportation employees. Employees shall be granted 1 unpaid lunch break lasting either 30 minutes or 60 minutes per shift. The lunch break start time as well as which duration option is used, meaning 30 minutes or 60 minutes, may be determined by the supervisor. However, the supervisor shall make every effort to schedule a lunch break as close to the halfway point of the employee shift as possible. Employees in field work groups, with the exception of public transportation employees, shall be granted 2 50-minute paid breaks per shift, 1 before the unpaid lunch break and 1 after. The break start times may be determined by the supervisor. However, the supervisor shall make every effort to schedule the breaks as close to the start of the second and fourth quarters of the employee shift as possible. All other work group employees shall maintain the status quo with respect to break scheduling. And my question is, what other groups that are considered non-field work groups that are bargaining unit groups that you can think of? I guess anyone who's in an office, correct?
Yeah.
this was kind of a commingling of the different things that we discussed. And so the union's proposal is that obviously the transit drivers will get a lunch. And that's just something I understand that they don't have one now, but it is a major issue with the drivers, and we just think it's fundamentally right to give someone a lunch break.
Explain to me why the lunch break is unpaid, but the other breaks are paid when both of them, the employee is not doing any work for the employer.
Because typically an employer will deduct their lunch break time. If you want to pay for that, we certainly want to accept that.
We're not getting anything for it. It's the employee's time to use as they want. They're not engaged in work for the employer.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, a 15 minute paid.
Why wouldn't both be unpaid?
Well, 15-minute paid break, the employee.
30 minutes. There's two of them.
Correct, over the course of the day, right?
Okay.
But each 15-minute paid break. I've heard many employers, argue that the employee was too far from their work site. If something came up, you're being paid for this, I want you right back, it's a paid benefit. If that's what you're wishing to hear from me. We understand it's a paid benefit. A lot of employees already enjoy this paid benefit. How many of you guys here get, I know you don't, Jim, but how many of you guys get 15-minute breaks? So it's something that's...
You can't go 7 to 12 without taking a 15-minute break.
It works informally, I agree with you. That's not the issue.
Yeah, it's being required.
The issue is now we're raising it to the formality of contract language.
And
So
what happens if somebody something happens and you don't get your 15-minute pay break?
Days you don't, we just accept it.
But under the contract, then we're in trouble.
Well, if there's a need to put some sort of trigger in there where in an emergency situations that you don't want to, it's one of these things like you can have it, but don't tell me that you got it. I mean, that's what you guys are saying.
No pun intended, but we're trying to fix something that's not broken here. All right,
I'm trying to preserve something that could be stripped from someone based on the comments you just made. Why
we
is
have
it?
a clause in that says we can't alter the status quo. So that covers the informal break that's being taken right now, which nobody except the guy at the end of the table here seems to have a dispute with.
So you're willing to say on a recording that we would have the right to grieve an employee not taking a break?
You have a clause in the contract that we've TA'd on, I believe, that talks about past practices.
Right.
If you believe there's a past practice, if it were the concept of the break, you could pursue that as a violation of the contract.
And the county could probably want to argue the case and go to an extreme of saying that the practice doesn't exist. When I say the practice does exist, and then we all waste a whole lot of time.
John, I gave you the language for the past practice, okay? I tracked the case law and PERC law on it. All right, you didn't bring the language to us. I brought it to you and said, here's what we're prepared to articulate in the contract, so there's no dispute over it. We know how past practice is proven or disproven. If I wanted to disprove it, I wouldn't offer you language articulating how it's done.
Well, what is the harm in agreeing that someone's entitled to something that's already entitled to it, but already has it, or currently enjoys it?
Because you're raising it from an informal process to a formal process. That's a contract issue.
Well, you just said in your previous statement that we have language to protect a practice. So is that not a formal practice?
No, it's very different.
Why? Because you got a chance of getting
I
that
have
practice.
just as good a chance of defeating you on a pure contract grievance as I do on a past practice. Don't be ridiculous.
I don't think I'm being ridiculous. I think I'm being realistic. If someone is entitled
You're
to
trying
a
to
break,
fix something that's not broken, okay?
if
And by
someone is
doing
entitled
it,
to a break every single day, okay, 2 breaks every single day, and then all of a sudden the employer says, you know, for whatever management reasons, we need to cut down on manpower, and we just need to do with one or two less guys in your department, and the way we're going to accomplish getting the work done is by not allowing people to take breaks anymore. And I file a grievance saying that a past practice has been violated because in the past, these employees have enjoyed breaks, and you pull out your bargaining notes and you pull out your recording and you say, well, we explained to the union full and clear, Mr. Arbitrator, that we did not want them to be locked in and with a provision. And, you know, so now you successively taken something away from the employees. You use your management rights clause as the means for doing so. And regardless of what the past practice language says, you have management rights that says that you have a right to do what you got to do to manage this place. And what that includes is having 2 less people in that department, and we cannot give these people breaks anymore. And you're probably going to win the agreement. It all depends on the arbitrator. And all I'm trying to do is just simply preserve what these guys have to where I don't have to fight and jump through hoops and waste a whole bunch of time and energy fighting for something that's already there.
If your people truly want to extend the workday by 90 minutes, the 60 minutes for the lunch and the 30 minutes for the break, just tell us that you want to extend the workday for that period of time.
Obviously, what in this implies extending anything? If the 15-minute breaks are paid and they've been currently taking them within their hours of their scheduled shift, who's talking about adding any time? Where's that coming from?
It's coming from me, because when I look at a contract that says that when you're not working, when you're not engaged in activity for the county or any employer, that's time that should extend the workday.
That's Jim's opinion.
That's right.
That's not what the practice is.
I'm entitled to my opinion.
Yeah, sure, so am I.
And I
But
get
the
the
practice is
right
bad.
language to propose my opinion.
Okay, what hours do you work?
7 to 5:30. If you want me to work 7 to 12 without a break, that's kind of like that.
On the days that
You get a break.
That's right.
I didn't say I want you to work
Keep
without a
the
break.
break.
You said I want you to work without a break. We've never said that. We don't want to change anything about the way you take your break.
15 minutes on the
Including,
job.
we don't want to change having to add language to a contract to fix something that's not broken.
just something to
Hey,
say.
can we take a break a minute?
Sure.
15?
Minute or two.
Okay, we're off. We'll step out. Okay, we're back on at 2 o'clock.
Get some visitors.
It's a public meeting.
Public meeting, fine. We're going to just put this thing on ice for today. Reason being is that Jim is still in the process of getting his data from the drivers. Okay? And so it's going to have some impact on the brakes portion of it, and so I think that we can speak a little bit more intelligently on it the next time we get together once we have that information.
Okay?
Want to talk about holidays?
Sure.
Are you just basically just, are you just maintaining your position, or can we get any kind of movement on? I don't understand why the county would want to take away something, you know, that they can only enjoy. I guess if the guy is not scheduled to work on a particular day that the holiday falls on now, they still get the holiday benefit, but your proposal is to take that away from them.
Our proposal is that an employee who calls in sick on their regular workday before that holiday forfeits the holiday. Because it's that combination of unjustified sick leave coupled with the holiday that affects the performance level of the employee and the work product of the county.
You got something to say?
Well, you already have that career service man. You have to work the day before the day after holiday, you pay for the holiday.
We agree to it.
You already have it. You already
Yeah,
have it.
that's
I
not
think
a-
that, you know.
No, but
Well,
it doesn't
that's
say that
negotiable.
you, no, it doesn't say that you forfeit the holiday. No, it doesn't use that phrase.
Well, so on vacation day, you still get paid for holiday. Sick leave, no one, you call in sick the day before, you don't, nobody's paid for holiday.
Now, if you're in a pace, you have to be, the way current practice in the career service manual, you have to be in a pay status before and after the holiday. So if you're on leave without pay, that's when you don't get it. But if you're on vacation,
You get
you're
it.
sick or something, you do get it. The only time you lose it is if any part of the day before or after you're on leave without pay.
I'll leave without pay, you know?
So you have to be
I
in
think,
pay status.
John, I think the proposal you're looking for is that if what their proposal was is I'm off Monday.
Yeah.
Monday's the holiday. Now I usually get Tuesday off. They were taking Tuesday away.
I get paid for the holiday, but I'd lose my day off. I'd work Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
I think that's what their proposal was.
No, that's not what we're looking for. What we're trying to do is we're trying to look at the day before and the day after a holiday, where the employee calls in sick to extend the amount of time that they have off. They pair up sick leave with the holiday.
I understand that, but that's,
And that's what I thought our language said.
I thought your line, well, you should know what your line said, but you got page 66 of 75, is that the one, the holidays? Maybe, there's been a revised one that I don't know about.
What if we take vacation?
What page?
Holiday falls on a
It's
Wednesday.
66 of 75.
You pay the holiday.
Okay.
That first paragraph, says for each holiday the county commission designates as a county holiday, full-time bargaining unit employees will receive holiday pay in the amount equal to the amount they would have earned on a regular workday. And I think this is where I have a problem with, unless the holiday falls on a day the employee is not scheduled to work or is on leave, in which case holiday pay for that holiday will not be paid. And that's, so if someone works 4/10 shift and the holiday falls on a day that they're not scheduled to work, they don't get the holiday, according to the proposal. Or if somebody is on vacation the week of the 4th of July.
But what they get is they get another day, right?
He just said you want, he
No,
just said.
no, we're talking about two different things, but as it relates to paragraph 1, you're telling me, and I think this is my understanding, they get another day.
Yeah, there's a,
Well, I feel more comfortable saying they don't get paid, but they get
What's-
another day off.
what's your counter? Do you have a counter?
Counter is to leave the status quo, and I thought that's what the change in the status quo was. I just want things to be the way they've been.
That last,
So maybe, maybe I
So
saw
now,
something.
when you pay Mondays off, you pay Tuesday off.
Well, this is the status quo language, it's not Jones underlined or, this is the language from the previous contract, the imposed contract.
Previous contract, it doesn't mean status, that's not the status quo of what the policy is necessarily,
Well, let's distinguish, let's not use the term, status quo then, you're talking about the language from the career service rules.
because that's what the status quo is. You guys negotiated a contract or and attempted to have that contract implemented, which we voted down and disagreed with. That's certainly not the status quo. So when I say the status quo, I'm talking about what they're doing now. I mean, I'm not talking about a document that was rejected.
I don't want to take up that debate with you about what the status quo is, but just compare it to the language of the career service rules. And then I'll understand what your counter proposal is.
because it is different from that.
You have the career service rules? John, you have the section you're referring to? Tell me what number it is.
it says A4 dash 1, if somebody can please pull out of here. In the table of content. A4 is is holidays. I'll pull them up in the copy. Every 4 on the
So if I understand, your proposal is to maintain the status quo of what the holiday section of the career service rules
Yeah,
is.
do you have it? Can I see it? Because I'm missing the 2 pages. I got page 4 through. Yeah, 84.02F says whenever a holiday falls on a full-time employee's regularly scheduled date off, the employee shall receive pay for their normally scheduled hours, a time and 1/2 rate for the holiday compensation, or they shall receive another day off from the regularly assigned work days for holiday compensation. So you either give them time and a half. If it, say the Monday through Thursday holiday falls on a Friday, you either give them time and a half for that day, or you give them another day off during the Monday through Thursday scheduled work week. So I think that's the part that's been carved out of the county's proposal. And that's what we're seeking to maintain. So it's found in F.
And how about with respect to the last paragraph of the proposal?
Working the day before and the day after, you guys said that that's the status.
That's what we thought it was now. You can't take a sick day before or after.
Then
You lose
A
holiday.
vacation, you can take a vacation day before and after, but you can't take a sick day.
I've seen
That's
it
what
not,
their
people
proposal
not
says
get
you
paid
call
for
in sick.
because they take the sick day. Just,
Because you got people like.
Then the issue
that
is
use their
that-
sick time.
The issue is
to
between
extend the vacation.
our proposal for paragraph 1 and your counter that it should be what's in A402, right?
Right.
Well,
402F.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, is that something we can get banged out today, or?
We'll think about it and we'll talk about it during the break. See what it looks like.
We couldn't get any conference room big enough in our building, that's why we're over here, so.
just training downstairs.
I like these chairs better. Yeah, let's do this one again.
Well,
These are nice chairs.
I wanted him to
because
cross.
you can't run upstairs and get things typed, or,
Yeah, but we got plenty of phones.
Yeah,
Just don't answer.
yeah, call somebody, right?
Papa John, send over 5 pizzas, please.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, 31, lead time excluded.
We have no movement on that.
Just looking at your product. Workers' compensation. The supplemental pay, can you describe that to me again one more time? Or can anyone describe that to me, what that benefit includes?
You know, I meant to, find out the number of days, there's a certain number of days that we pay full pay instead of,
Pre-workers comp, 4 days,
For 2 weeks, what you gotta eat?
4 days. I got hurt on a Monday. on Tuesday. First thing in the morning, instead of claiming workman's comp, I can go home and they'll pay me 40 hours pre-workers' comp before they file a workers' comp claim. And they don't come out of my sick or vacation or nothing, they pay me 40 hours as pre-workers' comp if I hurt my knee.
So it's like 1 week.
It's, yeah, 40 hours, it's 1 week.
I wasn't sure how long.
Whether it's on a Tuesday or Wednesday, then I get 4 days off, pre-workers' comp, and then she would file a workers' comp claim, or whoever would. And then I start paying workers' comp, yeah, then I get 66% of my pay.
So am I correct in saying that if you got hurt on the job and you went to a doctor and they released you and you came back 4 days later, you would not be entitled to any workman's compensation outside of what the county gives you, workman's comp, or not?
Well, if I say I hurt on Tuesday, and Doc says, well, you need to take off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you can go back Tuesday. They'd pay me 40 hours pre-workers' comp. If he was, just to give me, say it was a small thing, but now I would say it was, well, you're gonna be up for 3 months. Well, I'm gonna pay for the first 4 days, and workers' comp's gonna start after that.
So by eliminating that, you would just go back to work on Tuesday and get nothing.
Well, no, they would offer the eliminate.
No, then they
That's
would,
what I'm saying.
Pay me
We're
for
talking
that.
about what workman's comp provides and what the county
Yeah,
provides.
they'd have to pay me workers' comp, they'd have to start workers' comp right away.
Yeah.
Get 4 days of workers' compensation, that's what they'd have to do. If I hurt on a job on
Which
Tuesday,
is not full pay.
which is 66 penny a pay, but they don't wanna, they workers' comp. I mean, what do you say, their proposals, do they wanna eliminate that?
We just want to follow what the statute provides for workers' comp. Which means there's
So
no
the county
supplemental
doesn't
pay.
do this, but the county does this, has been doing this for like, I don't know, forever? And you just wanna take it and say, okay, we're not gonna pay you, you're gonna pay from day one anyways. If I get hurt today, you're gonna pay me from the time I got hurt till the time I come back to work. Either way, that just makes your workers' compensation insurance go up. That's, I think, why you guys put this in your thing, so you don't pay us 40 hours instead of, file another workers' comp, but it's gonna be out 4 days. Stop the claim, pay me 66% of my pay. File it, claim your insurance, go up, mine.
Well, we're
I thought that's why you put
we're
it in.
self-insured for workers' comp,
Alright,
so,
so
that's.
You want to just go through all the paperwork right off the bat?
Well, and
I'm only here for 2 days. You're still gonna pay me.
the paperwork is, just to clarify a little bit, the paperwork is submitted, as soon as somebody, is out for any length of time.
But if I hurt on Tuesday, I come back I'm out Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I come back on Friday, you still gonna pay workers' comp at 66% of my pay.
Now, under the new proposal?
That's what you say, yes.
Yeah.
But the first day, you're gonna pay me for my full day when I got hurt on the job, because you don't know if I'm gonna get me back. You pay me for my whole day when I leave work, if I got hurt at 10 o'clock in the morning, you pay me till 5:30, that's how it goes. You don't start claiming for 4 days. That's how
You
it
get the remainder of the day if you go home that day.
Yeah.
Whenever you get
Okay,
home,
good
that's
day.
when you.
So you got to fill out workers' comp, all that stuff for 2 days, and then come back on Friday. It says take 2 days off because you're a little slow. You come back Friday. Okay.
We can verify that that's the way it works.
I mean, but you don't want to.
Your scenario.
That's your proposal or something, right?
No, my proposal just says there's no supplemental pay.
So
of
you,
any kind.
so you'd be filing workers' comp, and whenever I get hurt, until the time I come back. 66% of that. Okay? That's not big one.
Well, I thought what you were describing was a waiting period that you have to wait before workman's comp will kick in. I mean,
Yeah, I know how long it's
Well,
gonna
it's
take.
gotta be 5 days, and
Five
that reverses
work
the
days,
first
but-
day.
right. So if you get past that first week and you're still injured and you haven't been released,
Then it goes
it
back.
goes retro back to day one.
Yep.
But the county's policy makes you whole if you don't go
If you don't,
past.
most, like.
Is that where it stops?
just-
Is that where the policy
Actually,
stops?
it probably brings it back to work quicker.
It
That's
does.
what a lot of people say, I'll stay out the whole week, and doctor signed off.
Well, not that, but say, like when Frank got hit with a branch, they're saying he got hit with a branch, he's only out for, take 3 days off, and go wear a hard hat and get it dirty for 3-4 days. So he took 4 days off, took pre-workers' comp, came back on a Tuesday. He's ready to go, it's healed up, he kept taking stitches out in a couple days, he's good to go. But, you're not like you're broken arm, you gotta be up for 6 months or
Well,
whatever.
it's usually up to the doctor to decide whether
Yeah.
they can or not.
Exactly, well, that's what he said, take 3 days off.
They wanna pay from day one, I mean, they're self-insured, right?
Well, my question is that's the extent of the benefit, it's just to make up that first.
I know it's the waiting period, I just, I don't really deal with it. Let's see if I can find it. Something we could.
Yeah, we could pull up a real live example and use it as a point of discussion. if you want.
And the reason for wanting to eliminate that supplemental paid benefit as a cost-saving measure.
Yes.
Okay, what do you think about our annual leave proposal?
We're not in a position to add benefits at this point.
Well, it's not really adding.
Yeah, we're changing the criteria, not adding.
You're getting more leave faster with adding benefits.
It doesn't cost the taxpayer any more money. And you're giving your workers just a little more time, you know, for what it amounts to. You know, they get a little bit something. It
How
really
is
doesn't.
it not,
You're budgeting, you're budgeting for my time for 2,080 hours every year. And you're gonna pay me if I'm on vacation or if I'm, so it doesn't really cost the taxpayers any money.
well,
All it does is-
because when you leave, you get 100% of your annual leave. So there's a difference if you have 300 hours versus 400 hours
Yeah, but
versus
if you-
500 hours. And you multiply that by your salary, that adds up.
You're not asking for
And
more
that's-
hours.
That's when the citizens really get upset.
But
when they see how much-
we use the system that you give it, we're using a system that you give your supervisors right now. Your supervisors are more important than we are.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying.
But your supervisors
We've had those
get,
numbers in there for at least, I wanna say 30 years. This is not the right political climate to be adding benefits. You know, we're gonna be lucky if we can get everybody 3%.
I think the point we're trying to make is it doesn't have an immediate fiscal impact. I understand it does have an overall fiscal impact. The liability of what's on the books, we get that, you know, but it's not a number that is immediately felt. It's felt when people separate employment or retire many years from now. But I understand that the budget has to account for that liability, right? And so-
Well, I'm not sure how they do it in the budget, but it is a real dollar amount when the person leaves. And they don't have to leave years from now, they can leave right away.
So in the budget, you have like
No,
$1 million,
right
you
after- right
know,
after
at the half the
the-
counties left right now, you're gonna come, you have enough money in the budget to pay all the sick and vacation. That's, yeah, I'm not saying exact, that's what you think, it's not something that affects you right now, it's over time. Because we have enough right now. you
Yeah,
have
if
to pay.
everybody left at the same time, we'd have a major problem.
You'd be like Detroit.
Yeah, pretty much.
We give them a good contract.
But, you know, kind of like, these guys are saying, we're trying to look for things that would bring us to successful ratification. And we figured that this was a good approach to go about doing that, because it's not a direct fiscal impact on the county. I understand it's just a line item in a budget that may show a slight increase, but it's not something that's going to be realized this year. Unless, like you said, potentially everybody left at once, but the chances of that happening are probably very slim.
Would you agree to it in combination with our language on the second year performance-based pay?
Well, I'm not gonna make a decision right now. I mean, is that an offer?
I'm exploring where we could
Is this a
perhaps,
proposal?
I'm exploring where we could leak a couple of things. You know, we want to, you know what our goal is. You know, maybe we could persuade the board to spend a little bit of money in the future to obtain what we want in the second year of the contract. But if your answer with respect to committing to pay for performance in the second year, it's gonna remain no, then we're not gonna spend more money on the contract in year one.
Well, it's all tied together, you know,
That's why I asked.
right, and so are we willing to consider that? Sure we are, and I'd like to, you know, I'd like to explore all things that we can do to get this thing ratified in both camps, because that's what the goal is. You know, I think that, everybody's, you know, pretty much interested in getting this thing, ratified and having an agreement that both sides can be proud of and willing to sign off on. There is no, gotcha, there is no, we stuck it to them, it just doesn't happen. Both sides have to agree to this thing. And so, if you're saying that it might be doable if we were to agree to a year or two, then that's something that we need to know, and I appreciate you sharing all that, and so we'll certainly consider it. Well, at least there's no misunderstanding of what the proposal is and what it's about and what our thought process is, right? So. How many, I guess we don't know the census, so. How many people in what categories of,
That would be impossible.
we'll find out on the computer, right?
They showed you the page you were missing.
The career service now?
Yeah, they just had part of both the,
It's online, you can go on the website and do all this stuff.
I know, it's one, that's one.
I don't have it with me.
Yeah, I'll talk about it.
I know I have it, I took them out of there, make copies, and then I just didn't, we'll back in some spot, and I could send them some. Yeah, it's okay.
All right, so let's, while we're stacking stuff up, let's stack up seniority.
You guys can follow along, Calvin, if you know.
I might have a couple more.
Another one?
Yeah, one more. Last bargaining session, you essentially challenged us to use a term that we don't like and see how far we could go in using it.
Wow.
This represents how far we could go in using it.
And the, item number 2, job assignments which have a locational component and job assignment is bid.
Yeah, we went from how it works now, from what I understand, is that there are currently locational assignments that get bid. We don't want to create a whole new category of locational assignments that are not currently selected through some kind of seniority process.
Well, I'm just surprised that you use that word, I mean, bid, I mean, I like it, but I mean, if there's not a bidding process in place, because my understanding is that somebody quits on the east side, and on the west side someone quits on the east side, there's a vacancy on the east side. If somebody from the west side wants that job, they put in for it, and they're considered, and they're selected based on whatever criteria that you want to use. Is that what you're referring to as a bid?
Right. I mean, you could articulate it differently. From what I understand, it works different ways in different positions or assignments.
But what I don't want to get hung up on is that it's contingent upon that job assignment being bidded, and someone saying at some point in time in the future, well, we don't do bids here. And so that's the only reason I'm a little bit cautious about that. Job assignments which have a locational component, period. Or filled, in conjunction with county decisions regarding layoffs or job assignment, I guess, which have a locational component, period. I don't see.
Who's to decide if it was taken into consideration?
Well, there's a whole lot of faith put into this, and we're trying to build this trust center.
I thought at the last meeting also, you asked us what our three most important points were. Promotions were the other one. All else being equal, seniority will be taken into consideration for a promotion.
Yeah, it definitely was mentioned.
Yeah, it was, and we did, and when we set out on a limb, this represents where we are on it. You listed 3, you got 2 out of 3.
Number 2 says, back to that job assignment, which have a locational component, and job assignment is bid. Now, I thought being like, job assignments, which we were talking about, I thought I was on day-to-day assignments. You don't take the youngest guy just came in and put him on a loader, and take the senior guy who's been in 10 years and runs equipment and put him on shoveling dirt. Is that what you're talking about?
At the last meeting, John said he was talking about location.
Oh, location,
Yeah, we're not talking about what you just
It's
said.
just about,
Originally
you're
that-
talking about job assignments with county.
One at a time, the question was asked by Jim, if we could streamline, and kind of follow, maybe we didn't use those words, but, if we could kind of follow what the most important components of seniority were to us, and I identified a few things, and promotions was one of them. Layoffs was the first one.
Bidding for jobs.
Promotions was the second one, and then the third one was the job assignments, maybe not the day-to-day stuff just yet, that we can grow into that in the future, but certainly, when someone feels that they're being punished, when they live in Dade City and they're told they have to drag up and move, and start reporting to work every day in Newport Richmond. So that's what we talked about, but then they come back with, that day they came back with 3 of the 3, and then today they've changed that to 2 of the 3. And us not having the ability to read it is probably my biggest concern out of anything. But what was discussed, Tom, was that, that we're trying to build this relationship to where the first contract can't have everything in it that we want. We understand that, and that if someone has to sit down from the county and articulate and its justification for not recognizing seniority in this particular event, they're going to have to do so. And it's hard to articulate something that doesn't have any weight to it, But my whole concern is, well, what if they do? What if they sit down and write something that's completely untrue? It's articulated as all get out, but it's not accurate, And so that's what our concern is. But again, we're trying to get this trust thing happening here. And they have explained that, they can't even breathe the word seniority. We probably can't breathe the word seniority without getting a knot in their stomach. And that this is coming a long way for them, and we certainly appreciate the movement. There's bigger concerns in the first paragraph, in my opinion. Total consecutive time worked by employee for Pasco County. Now, we all know that there's a lot of different positions in Pasco County, and not all of them are bargaining unit positions. And so someone who's spent, 4 or 5 years working in a different part of the county that has nothing to do with the bargaining unit. And then they come in here and after, let's even say 10 years, they want a career change. Suppose they're in management, and it has happened in other places, they're in management for a long period of time, and they decide, you know what, I have enough of the stress and the ulcers and the headaches, I want to go down and be a worker bee. And we don't think it's necessarily fair that they carry all that time with them for the purposes of seniority, for bidding, and for layoff and that sort of stuff. When someone takes it upon themselves to up and move, there's consequences to it. And so that's an issue that I'm just going to throw out there. And the other one is the full-time and part-time employee. I don't know how many part-time employees there are, but I had a recent snag up in Citrus County. It wasn't a snag because we worked it out just fine. But they had to reduce their bus drivers up in their in-house bus drivers, and they had to reduce 5 full-time positions, and their part-time employees have been there for 10, 15 years. So how do we do that? Well, full-time takes precedence, or takes preference, so that you have full-time employees are what this is about, and part-times come after. And so when there's a layoff, part-time employees get laid off first, so that means even the junior-most full-time employee holds seniority over the senior-most part-time. And so we start running into snags like that, and if there's not a part-time workforce here, I don't know, can anybody enlighten me how many part-timers there are working here?
You have a bunch in the bargaining
There's a
unit.
bunch. It starts becoming a real issue when someone has been a part-timer for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years, and then they finally become full-time, that they think they should be entitled to what's called dovetailing in a seniority list in a specific area. When everyone in that area is shaking their head, no. You were a part-time for many, many years by your own choice. I've been here doing my thing as a full-time employee. This is my meat and potatoes. This is what I do for a living. You've been working elsewhere. So now you're a full-timer, you go to the bottom of the full-time seniority list. And I'm throwing out some problems that I've had and seen in other places.
Those are all union problems as far as we're concerned. You know, that's because you have your different classes of membership worth. We don't view it that way.
But see, the contract is a governing document. And
I understand. So let me understand what your language would be. Your language would read.
And if that's not a hang-up with you, that's great. As far as identifying seniority as consecutive time.
Once you put them on a different roster, then it's,
I'm sorry?
once you put them on a different roster, then it becomes more complicated.
But it's a union problem, like you just said.
Well, but management's gonna have to keep track of it.
Data hire is data hire. I mean, it's
But,
just,
yeah, if you have them together, if you have data hire, but, oh, wait a minute, that one's part-time, put them over there.
get a piece of paper and you draw a line and full-time.
What I'm saying is you have 2 lists
That's
instead of
different.
one.
It's done everywhere. It's done
Change
everywhere.
But you have part-time in your bargaining unit. So you're telling me that, I just gotta understand this, maybe I'm just not familiar with what you do. You've got somebody that starts here as a part-time employee, and they work here for 5 years as a part-time employee. And then there's a full-time opening and they get that position. They're both in your bargaining unit, by the way. Let's just say it's one of the positions in this already described in the unit where you can have them as a dues-paying member as a part-time or a full-time. So now they work another 5 years, now they've got 10 years of employment here. Your position is they only get credit for 5 years?
No, what my position is when it comes time to lay someone off, who do you lay off? You lay off the employee that's been in that bargaining unit position, full-time bargaining unit position that has 5 years in that position, or do you give them 10 years of credit in that position? And then how does that impact the people that are behind them? And your next sentence says an employee is laid off from work, recall within 1 year, will have seniority calculated from his or her original hire date. So what you're saying,
That's the language that you agreed to. You helped me work that out.
I understand. I'm just explaining how we need to have some consideration for part-time seniority. It's something that has come up recently that has never come up before because, and from what I understand, about 25 years there's never been a layoff in Citrus County. But now with Duke Energy coming to town, wreaking havoc on a whole lot of stuff, now we have to start looking at things that we never had to look at before. And so, in your scenario, a part-timer who's got 5 years of seniority with the county gets a full-time position, let's not give him another 5 years, let's give him another 5 months, okay? So he's got 5 years and 5 months working for the county, now there's a layoff, okay? We got a guy who's been in that full-time position for 4.5 years. He's gonna be pretty upset that that part-timer can waltz in at the last minute and you've got seniority over him. And again, I'm not trying to find the boogeyman in every little situation. All I'm trying to do is, if we're going to talk about a definition of seniority, that we give some thought to separation of full-time and
Well,
part-time.
if it's all an issue whether a bargaining unit employee or not, why don't we just relate back to the date that the bargaining unit was approved by PERC, and that's where everybody starts for the purposes of seniority. So everybody started equally the day you formed into a bargaining unit. And because they were county employees before
Change the
they.
structure.
I guess you really don't understand.
Well, your logic is that there's
understands.
some different privilege associated with the bargaining unit. So
No, I want separation from bargaining to non-bargaining, for sure, okay? So someone's time spent in the service of the employer in a non-bargaining position shouldn't have any credit in this document that only applies to bargaining unit employees. That's for sure.
Well, we talked about this quite a long time, and I thought this was the language that was settled, what's shown.
You're missing like 33 1/3% of what we thought that you were willing to agree to last time.
I have a question on your underlined most recent hire date. Now, if I'm a groundskeeper for 10 years and decide to be a crew leader, I get a new hire date. Now, do I lose my 10 years seniority as a?
No.
But as it says, the
That
most.
language was really a response to what John described is that if you decide that, you don't want to work here and you leave for over a year or whatever the time period is, the break in service, voluntarily, when you return to service, you call up and you say, can I have my job back? And the answer is yes. On the seniority list, you're at the bottom.
Yeah, that's fine, that's understandable.
That's
But like I said, I get a new hire date when I get a promotion.
Yeah,
Now,
I get a new,
that's your promotion date.
okay.
There was some references, Doug is accurate in saying there were some references that I believe we cleaned up in other parts of this contract. Because I remember that coming up in the impasse hearing. And you guys didn't seem to have a problem with changing that. Because there were some references to saying, under promotions, that you get a new seniority day, and we were saying, no, you can't have.
No, but he's talking about hard date.
Well, what is
Not
a seniority
seniority
date? Seniority date is typically considered a higher date.
well, let's break this down and see where we're apart. We're okay with seniority means the total consecutive time of something, right? Consecutive time work.
Consecutive time
The
work.
first clause is all right.
Well, we
Pasco
agreed to
County.
use the word seniority.
Okay.
We agreed to that.
No, seniority means the total consecutive time worked by an employee for Pasco County in a bargaining unit position. All right?
Okay.
Commencing with the employee's most recent hire date. Why are these words underlined?
Because from the original language, these are the language, they went through an evolution. Every time I added language, I did it in track change.
Employee's most recent hire date as either a full-time or part-time employee. The only separation is having, there was considered part-time seniority versus full-time seniority. And without referencing it, it's going to be understood that it's all lumped together.
Yeah, it has to be lumped together. It's impossible, unless
It's just going to.
unless you're going to buy different colored T-shirts for each of these little groups we're talking about.
Jimmy, say, so if I work 80 hours a paycheck, and this guy's only working I come in 10 hours a day, he comes in 5. 10 hours a day, he comes in 5. 10 hours a day, 5. I'm working 10 hours a day, he's working 5, because he's working another 5 at Walmart, or 8 at Walmart, because he chooses to work only part-time, because he gets better benefits over there. So he's gonna be entitled, it's the same seniority as me when I'm dedicating my full 10 hours here, I'm not doing 5 at Walmart or 8 at Walmart. You say he should have every benefit as me when it comes time to get laid off, or you gotta count his data. Say we got both hired the same day. He was part-time and I'm full-time. Why should we be the same?
That's an interesting point, but I've never seen a contract, and maybe John has. I've never seen a contract that describes seniority in terms of hours worked.
Well, there's certainly
Your
classifications.
point's well taken,
Yes,
which is,
no, he should be,
you're a
like,
full,
a
yeah.
full-time employee, he's a part-time at his choice. He could be a full-time employee, but he wants to work at Walmart as a manager at night.
There's certainly contracts that have, a flag of difference in the classification. So, your example of wearing different color shirts, it's not that difficult when you enter someone's hire code when they're hired as what are they? They're a full-time employee or they're a part-time employee. I mean, you have that entered in anyway, don't you?
Yeah.
So what is so difficult? When you have a
Well, it's
part-time
when
employee,
people go from one to the other, that's when it becomes.
then you get a new date.
The new date of hire is
No,
full-time.
you don't change, you don't change the date.
He's not
of
working
hire.
full-time.
Well, then it screws up their accruals.
Well, full-time, the part-time.
If you have the computer, you have the payroll system, right? Somebody starts on one day as a part-timer, your example earlier. For 5 years they're part-time, then 10 years they're full-time. If I give them a different date after 5 years, then they're gonna go back to square one with their accruals.
Well, I got news to tell you. What happens to the employee that has spent 5 years in management and decides they want to become a bargaining employee? What do you do with them then? How are you
You're
going
gonna
to
change their hire date.
You're not going to change their hire date?
No.
Well, we just talked about having their seniority being measured and how much consecutive time they've had in a bargaining unit position. So you already have to
We're gonna have to figure out how
have
to do
some
that.
sort of
But we're
right.
not
You're gonna have to figure out how to do
we're
that.
not
I
gonna
agree,
change
and it's
their
not that
hire date.
difficult, Barbara. It's really not that difficult. When you're in Excel, you make a new column.
No, it's not Excel, it's the payroll
Well,
system.
whatever you want, program you want to use. It's not very difficult, and if you want to have someone identified as either bargaining or non-bargaining because you're going to kind of have to, okay? Then what is the difference if they're bargaining full-time or bargaining part-time? It's not difficult, it's not rocket science, it's not very, very hard to do. And so that's what we're asking to do. It doesn't have to be lumped together. This is not,
Yeah, your example with the 10 years of full-time and 5 years of part-time. You only want to look at the 10 years of full-time. Now, if you have somebody that's been full-time for 12 years,